This is a presentation by Michael Hunt to the Johannesburg Hiking Club on the 28th of March 2019. It is the story of 13 amazing days in June 2018, last year, where Gerda and I, here we are at the airport in Johannesburg, went to Humanité Lake and Inca Trail in Peru and Iguassu Falls in Argentina and Brazil. But before we start, does anybody remember the Kodak Brownie camera and associated film? I went on my first overseas trip to America in 1976, and this is what I used to record my whole trip. But the technology has improved, and now this is what we had to take with us. All this electronic paraphernalia. Three power packs, a GoPro for the videos plus their associated batteries, a camera, a charger, multiple charger, several different types of leads because the connections were uniform, 2 cell phones and 2 watches that also needed power to run. I also took, on my phone, I also had a translation app where you pointed the camera at a foreign sign and the language was converted into English, a very useful app. We flew from Johannesburg to Sao Paulo, which is an 11-hour flight. And this is the view of Sao Paulo from the aircraft window. Very, very big town, or very, very big city. It's the 12th largest in the world, and Shanghai is the biggest at 24 million. Commuting is the biggest problem, and 5.5 million cars. And on Friday nights, the average traffic length is approximately 180 kilometers. Originally, we were going to fly from London to Rio to Sao Paulo to Lima, Cusco, do the hike, fly to Iguassu Falls, fly to London and back to Johannesburg. This cost 146,000 rand. And I phoned the flight agents and said that they'd put a 1 in front by mistake, but I was convinced otherwise. So we decided to cut the London leg and not see our sun, and then we went return flights and cut out the Rio leg, and we went from Johannesburg to Sao Paulo return, Sao Paulo to Cusco return, and then Sao Paulo to Iguassu Falls return. And the price came down to 45,000 rand. But we didn't have enough money in the credit card, so the people said, well, unfortunately you might not get the same flights in a week's time. However, this was not true. We got the same flights, same seats, same times, and the price came down to 36,000 rand, a saving of 9,000 rand. Which went towards the spending money, which was much needed as we got carried away. We stayed overnight in Sao Paulo and got up early in the morning to fly to Lima, and then there was a connecting flight from Lima to Cusco, and you passed Machu Picchu on the way, but there was too much cloud cover to see. Then we went on the Humanité Lake hiking or trekking trip. We met at the Hotel Prisma at 4:15 in the morning, and I thought it was a holiday, so a little bit early. Human means head and Tay means mountain, so it's Head Mountain. We went from Cusco by bus to Malipata, had breakfast there, it just turned light, and then another 1-hour trip to the base of the hike. This is the start of the hike, flat around about 2,990 meters, and you hike up this mountain here on the left, and the mountain in front of is called Salcante Mountain, which is the highest in the area at 6,271 meters. Salcan means furious or wild, so it's a wild mountain. The elevation of Cusco is 3,400 meters, and the elevation of Joburg, where we are, is 1,750. This is the start of the ascent, and you could hire a horse, and these are the horse boxes to take you up the hill, but you had to walk down because the horses came down the mountain too fast, and the owners were saying that too many hikers fell off. This is around 3,250 odd meters, 20% up the mountain. Apologies for the heavy breathing, not what you think. It was the altitude and I was a bit tired. That's Gerda in the middle there. When we got to Humanitarian Lake at 4,300 meters, this is the photo taken by Gerda's cell phone, no photoshopping. There is a glacier at the end of the lake, and the reflection can be seen in the lake. I tried to walk round to a glacier because I've never been to one, but only got halfway and then had to return because we had to go back down the mountain. This is the group that we went with, and sure enough, you can't miss this. But there's a tradition in Peru to name all the groups that you belong to, and our group was called Cerdo Sexos, which apparently in English means sexy pigs. I don't know who that was, but it was a name given by the Italian architect in the group, typical Italian. Remember, our guide was Freddie, and he took this picture with all these cameras, and he modelled himself on Freddy Krueger from the movie A Night in Elm Street, but his hands weren't gloved and razored, so I think he was a bit optimistic. But after he'd taken the photos, he did a U-turn and started walking off with all the cameras, and one or two of these tourists got a bit upset and started running after him. Quite a joke. The following day we went along the Sacred Valley route, a precursor to the hiking trail. We went from Cusco up to Chinchero, up to Urubamba, and then up to Ollantaytambo. On the outskirts of Cusco, we saw Christ the Redeemer. There was no need to go to Rio after all. In Rio, it's on the summit of the Mount Corcovado, which is the 5th largest statue of Christ at 98 feet. This is the smaller version at 13 feet. This is the Sacred Valley, and Ricardo was our tour guide, and G Adventures sponsors a weaving enterprise, and these ladies met us. Their hats are significant, and if the hat is turned down, like these are, they are married, and if they are single, they are turned up. So us fellas knew what to look for. This is the project, sponsored by G Adventures, at a place with too many seas. The colouring of the llama wool is done here, all with natural colourants, and for 151 sols we bought some table mats and a hat. The river is called the Sacred River and flows into the Amazon, and condors used to fly here around about 50 years ago. This lady is knitting or weaving a scarf. On the way we also looked at terraces, and terraces are for two reasons for existence. One is agriculture, which is the case here, and the other one is as support for buildings at the top of the mountains where the hoi polloi live. Each terrace is graded. Each terrace has graded soil, and there's an intricate irrigation system that links all of them together via a central artery. They grew different crops at different levels depending on the heat. Hot at the bottom and cool at the top. They even had an agricultural college in those days where they tested the different types of crops that they could collect from the surrounding places to see which ones grew the best. Then we went to lunch, and there's Gerda and myself and a young Irish couple, and Ricardo, our tour guide. This lady was on her 30th birthday celebrating, and these were Kelly and Dan, who we joined on the Inca trail. We had traditional food and a couple of beers, and this was the menu. And for those who can't read the Spanish, this is stuffed hot pepper, this is butter papitas or butter chips, and chaufa de quino is stir-fry rice dish. We also went to a brewery, which was in line with my interests because I brew my own beer, and they brew it with various coloured mealies that they grow. This is the guinea pig house next to the fire, which is here, so it's nice and warm, and I leant down to try and pick up one of the guinea pigs, but they all scarpered away, and later on you'll know why. We got to Ollantaytambo, and these terraces are used to support the houses or palaces at the top here, where Ollantay used to live with his family. That night we had to have a traditional meal, and it was the guinea pig, so now you know why the guinea pigs ran away. I'm sure it is safer in South Africa for a guinea pig. The next day was the start of the Inca trail. This was the start of the first day of the Inca trail. Each person was given a duffel bag that should weigh not more than 6 kilograms. The porters carry these for you, and as of 6 years ago, each duffel bag was weighed to ensure that the porters met the new regulations. Previously, porters were carrying too much weight. The trouble was that we hired a sleeping bag and mattress, which was a good move, but they weighed 3 kilograms together, so we could only put 3 more kilograms of clothes. We only had day packs and so could not fit in all our clothes that we bought and had to leave some behind in the hotel. This was to bite us later on the trail. Adventures did not explain this well in their upfront blurb, but this was turned out to be the only mistake, and Adventures were a fantastic tour group. We met our fellow hikers for the first time, and did we get some dirty looks. I think they thought we were knocking on a bit, maybe true, and would slow them down. Fortunately, the training at the Wednesday hikes at the Johannesburg Hiking Club helped us a lot, and we were able to show them a thing or two. This was the hike, an 11 kilometer hike, and shows the change in elevation, which wasn't very much. Here is the board at the entrance to the Camino Inca, or the Inca Trail. You arrive at kilometer 82, walk here over Dead Woman's Pass, another little mountain, up to Machu Picchu. This is Gerda with her ticket and passport, and accompanied by Kelly, who was smiling at this stage. This is our group of 10. This is Molly, who from the States at age 26. This is Dan and Kelly, who are together in Canada. This is Seb, who supports Aston Villa, Shame, and his new wife Sarah, who just got married and were on their honeymoon. This was Ella from Canada, a hairdresser. A hairstylist. And this was Blair, who was extremely fit and had resigned from work and was doing traveling the world, and this was his first venture. This is Dan, who is the youngest in the group, and this was Gerda at 62 and myself at 64. When I booked the trail, I asked to go with a group of people of similar ages. Unfortunately, I think the person allocating the groups was dyslexic and thought Gerda was 26 and I was 46. We had 2 guides. The senior guide was Michael, and his assistant was Jonathan, even though it's spelled with a Y. This is the start of the Inca Trail. Only 500 people are allowed on the trail per day, and each group, and that includes porters, and each group is allocated a colour. You can see the greens here and the whites up here, and the oranges here. This is the first set of ruins that we saw. It's a resting place for the Chasquias. They were the running messengers that carried messages between the cities in the Inca times. A message could be carried 200 kilometers in 8 days via relay, definitely rivaling the SA post office. The next set of ruins we saw were Patalacata. It was further down the mountain where the workers and used to live, and it's shaped in the similar to a snake, which is one of the spiritual animals of the Inca dynasty. This shows the type of path and scenery on the way. Now on to something else. an eye opener, or better phrasing, nose opener. The toilets. You cannot flush paper away, and you have to put it in a bin beside the toilet, and these are the toilets, and that is the bin, with its own unique aroma. I always got there when the bin was full. I think it must have been empty at some stage. This is finally got to the campsite for the first night. The porters arrive before you and erect the tents and start the cooking. Each night the dining tent was erected, and you had, the meals consisted of a soup followed by a main course followed by pudding. And it was always tastefully presented. I think this was guinea pig. We retired to the bed in preparation for what was to be a second hectic day on the trail. This shows the route for day 2, a 12-kilometer hike, reaching the highest altitude on the trail at Dead Woman's Pass at 4,215 meters. The start of day 2, where you replenished your water from these containers here, and this shows the type of terrain on the hike. This is Molly and Eyelash Ella waving at me. This is on the way to Lulu Cha. This is the start of the bad weather rolling up the valley that resulted in snow, strong winds and slippery steps. This was the mid-break where you could buy chocolate bars at a mini spaza shop, which came in very useful in the evening.
It is snowing in the middle of July and there is something wrong somewhere.
It's June.
Okay, I missed it out by a month, it's June. But there's still something wrong.
This is just before Dead Woman, the top of Dead Woman's Pass, and here I was completely frozen, and Gerda was also quite cold. This is where the reduced weight in the duffel bag bit us. We didn't have a decent weren't able to take a decent waterproof, and after all, I had decided to go on the hike in the dry season. This is Dead Woman's Pass, or Warmiwanazuska. It's a woman at 4,200 meters. It's so called because the mountain looks like a profile of a woman looking up at the sky. And that's her nose, so please use your imagination. Whilst you're working this out, I'll share with you that we were supposed to have a group photo at the top of this pass, but Miguel said that we should carry on as Kelly was way behind, having had a couple of tearful moments and ditching her backpack that was picked up by the second guide, Jonathan. This is just over the pass on the way down the other side. Extreme biting winds. And this is where that video was taken, and shows that some of the porters are carrying stuff down the mountain. It was amazing that even in this cold weather some of the porters had no shoes, but that was by choice. We got to the campsite and were greeted by the erected tents and 2 bowls of warm water, which were fantastic to be able to thaw ourselves out. At the campsite, this is me in the bed with my little bar of chocolate, thawing through. This dog was also cold and made its way into the tent, but had to be coaxed out and was wrapped in plastic by Molly. Pretty cold for the dog. The dining tent in the evening, and it was amazing. They managed to cook pannacooks for pudding. We all retired to the tent in preparation for day 3, which we were hoping would be a little bit warmer. This is the route for day 3, the longest day of 16 kilometers, but fortunately downhill at the end, where there are some unique steps. The night before, we'd been told that the weather was going to be good today, and the weather yesterday was the worst they'd had on the trail for 6 years. This is a good looking hiker on the Runkurake Pass. I'm not sure what she did behind the rock. At the top of the pass she was welcomed by, or greeted by, Miguel, who was impressed with Gerda's hiking ability. This is halfway.
Halfway house, darling. Halfway house.
Sounds good.
These people coming towards us are on a 1-day hike from Machu Picchu, and we are obviously on the way there. You can have an appreciation for the steepness of the steps. There was also a tunnel on the way.
Wow, hi? This is nice.
And at lunchtime the weather was fantastic with some great views.
With SPF, 250, and it's actually like.
And in the middle of nowhere, it was amazing. The 2 cooks baked a cake with our team name on it, the Condor team, and we were certainly flying high at this stage. And the cake tasted fantastic. And then there is the obligatory photo of the 22 porters and 2 cooks. And this shows typical step formation. Not the steps are a reasonable height, not like the Otter Trail where they are quite large, and it was difficult for people with short legs like Gerda and myself. This gives an indication of how fast the porters are going. They are obviously running towards the next campsite to erect the tents and start the cooking.
Lots of porters, Ella.
Lots of porters.
That's Machu Picchu mountain, and Machu Picchu is just behind it, and that's Machu Picchu city on the right.
This gives an example of equatorial forest that you walk through.
Through the rainforest.
And we met some fellow travellers on the way. I don't think he was impressed with my tutting, but at least he listened. This is the shows one of the many rainbows we saw. We didn't make it to either end to look for the pot of gold. This is the last campsite, and you were welcomed when you arrived. It's Molly behind Gerda. It had all gone so fast, and we were preparing ourselves for the last day of the hike. This is the itinerary for the last day of the hike. A very short 4 kilometre, but we had to get up very early in the morning, around 3 o'clock, so the porters could get to the train, and for us to queue to get into the park. This is Gerda, Sarah and Seb, and this is a much happier Kelly and eyelash Ella. This is the iconic view that you get from Sungate of Machu Picchu. It really is stunning. Unfortunately, this was our view.
Never saw them. Yeah, it's just an hour at 10. How do you stop by you? Yeah.
Machu Picchu is there. This was my iconic view from Sungate. And this is the group photo in front of Machu Picchu, which again is there. And I think the girls had learnt a little bit of Spanish, and they managed to get a couple of beers before we went into Machu Picchu. Thirsty work. This is inside Machu Picchu with the 140 buildings that were excavated. You can see the roofs have all rotted away, but the supports are still there. This was the Sun Temple, and the only thing I said at the temple was that I was not impressed with the weather they delivered. Very little sun. We made it, but the best bit about the hike was the hike itself, not Machu Picchu. Unfortunately, there are about 3,000 odd day visitors that are let in, and obviously 500 of the hikers. So there were too many people, and fortunately on the hike we'd seen lots of ruins on the way. So this was just a few more ruins. This is a view from inside Machu Picchu. Hiram Bingham, an American professor, went to Peru in 1911 in search of Vitkos, which was supposed to be the last Inca city, but found Machu Picchu instead. He walked along the Urubamba River Valley, used part of the Inca trail that we were on, and met a local called Melchor Artiago, who told him about Machu Picchu, which means old mountain in Quechua. Machu Picchu was built in 1450 as a summer palace with 140 buildings. It was used for less than 100 years, but the people did not leave because the Spanish arrived, as the Spanish never found Machu Picchu. Bingham moved lots of treasures from the Machu Picchu, and after a lot of fighting, most of them have been returned to Peru in 2012. You take the bus from Machu Picchu down the mountain to Aguascalientes, and we toured the city till we went for the Last Supper. This is a statue of an Inca warrior, and this is a close-up showing 3 spiritual animals: the condor, our team name, the puma, and the snake at the bottom here. The Incans considered the condor as the most sacred. Its large size and ability to travel long distances are some of the reasons why the Incas considered the condor as the most sacred. Its large size and ability to travel long distances are some of the reasons why the Incas believed it to be a messenger for the heavens. The puma was a symbol of power and strength, and was also a symbol of life on earth. It was important to show qualities of puma in its lifetime, and it is considered to the greatest predator and something to emulate. Because of this, the Incas designed Cusco in the shape of a puma. You can't see that now because it looks like a blob. The snake represents the underworld, which in Inca traditions has different connotations than Christianity. Rather than representing hell or being a sign of eternal punishment and temptations, the snake represented the beginning of new life. In Inca mythology, the snake is also believed to represent wisdom and knowledge. Gerda took this picture of a dog outside a shop, and less than 2 nanoseconds later, the owner came running out asking for money for the photograph. This is Peru's blue train, which travels through the city centre and is the one that took us back to Ollantaytambo. This is our Last Supper. Okay, if you count, we're 1 short. It was expensive, but enjoyable. And I had a medium, we both had a medium pizza, about the size of a small Roman's, 2 beers and a glass of wine, and it cost 758 rand. This is the train back from Aguascalientes to Ollantaytambo.
I have loads of people doing that, like in my life, because I'm well, not.
I think it's a little bit more modern than the one you went on, Graham. And during the trip, we were asked by the train attendant to keep our noise levels down, as there was a mass passenger trying to sleep. Shame. The people in the group were amazing and great fun to be with. It's a shame it all had to end. And then we flew, the following day we flew from Cusco to Lima, back to Sao Paulo, and the trip was over. A truly amazing hiking trail, and one that I recommend people must do at some time in their life. Next up was a trip to Iguassu Falls. in Argentina and Brazil. The second part of our journey was to visit the Iguassu Falls, and we flew from Sao Paulo to Foz do Iguassu, which is 30 kilometers north of the falls. Iguassu means big water in the Guarani and Tupi language. How were they formed? Well, about 132 million years ago, there was an enormous volcanic eruption that caused the falls to form. However, I am a romantic and prefer this mythological version. Naipe, a beautiful woman, like my wife, was destined to marry a god Mbowe. On the eve of the wedding, Niobe and Taruba, her lover, got into a canoe to escape downriver. The god got to hear about it and was enraged, and he changed into a serpent, wriggled into the rocks, making the earth to split asunder, causing the river to plummet into a chasm, taking the canoe with it and ending in Naipe and Taruba's death. In my opinion, a definite no-win-win situation. We walked down the pathway to the falls, along the raised gantry, and then to the tower to have a view from the top.
In one day like this, Iguassu Falls has more than 1 million liters of water per second.
Wow.
That was our guide, Carlos. This is the Three Musketeer Falls, and they look like more than three to me. This is walking along the raised walkway on the Brazilian side. And this shows the lift going up the tower, for which we also got a good view. This is the wildlife, coyote on the left here and a monkey on the right, and these are members of the raccoon family. This is a view from the tower. I bumped into Frederico Engel, who was a tourism entrepreneur, and he helped put the falls on the map. I had to read this because he did not have much to say, but he had a pretty cool hat. It was Gerda's 63rd birthday, and I took her on a helicopter ride over the falls. I'm not saying it was expensive, but we're still paying for the helicopter. I'd deliberately forgotten that Gerda does not enjoy flying. This is the view you got from the falls, above the falls. In the wet season, there are as many as 270 individual falls. In the dry season, which was now, there are about 150. On the way back, we had to stop at some traffic lights, and we bumped into a juggler, which was so we felt a little bit at home. We went to the Zaragoza restaurant for Gerda's birthday meal and had a bottle of Chilean wine that cost 260 rand. We were advised by the hotel to book because it would be very busy. When we got there, we were the only two people there, and the customer base doubled 1 hour later. The next day we went to the Argentinian side. You enter the park here and then go to the train station, and the train takes you to the 1 kilometer walkway. And this is the choo-choo train. This is the second sweep of the helicopter ride over the falls on the Argentinian side, to show where the train goes and drops you off here, and you walk along this raised walkway, a 1 kilometer raised walkway, and there's another raised walkway here to see these falls here. This is the raised walkway. This is the dry season, as I've said before, but in the wet season the river comes up to the bottom of the walkway, and on some days the walkway is closed because it's overflowing with water. Once you get to the end of the walkway, you come to the Devil's Throat. And we also went on a boat ride that took us along the yellow route and then the blue route. And we went under the falls here, here and here, and got thoroughly soaked. This was underneath the Three Musketeer Falls, or one of the Three Musketeer Falls. Once we'd dried ourselves off, we went on the upper walking trail and the lower walking trail. On the upper walking trail we saw some beautiful rainbow formations, and this is our guide, Carlos. This is the falls that we went under, one of the falls that we went under, the Salto Ambigue. And these are one of the many flocks of birds that fly up and down the fall system. And they're called great dusky swifts. Apparently they dive through the wall of falling water and live and nest on the wall behind the falls. But when you got to go, you got to go. So we flew out of Foz do Iguassu and saw the falls for the last time with a characteristic plume of mist. But before we left to come home back to South Africa, we danced the night away in Foz do Iguassu. Thanks for listening to our story, and hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed the holiday.